Hello, everyone, my dear friends. Wow, it's been a while since I was visible on YouTube, okay? It's actually 2 weeks from today, the last class we gave on Parshas Noach. Then I did some traveling, and then I got back. No, Noach, Lech Lecha, Vayerach. No, it's 3 weeks from today. Not 2 weeks, 3 weeks. This week I was out because I had a cold and I found it very hard. I came here every night to give a class and I just was exhausted. And I didn't make it on. And there's so much happening that I really, really have a lot to share. It's not going to be tonight's class. Tonight we're learning pure Chassidus. But maybe Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos, maybe Sunday. I have some big downloads to download, and I hope to share exciting stuff all about current events, Mashiach, and like really, really wild stuff. However, tonight we're going to go deep. And again, I'm a little bit on the weaker side, just because my body's a little run down. So I hope we'll have the energy to go through this. This class, this mimer that we're going to learn, is a mimer in Parshas Chayei. Now, it runs very, very similar to a discourse we learned last year, at the same time of the year. Right after Simchat Torah last year, I was teaching the discourse about, in Parshas Vezos HaBracha, that was talking about how the Torah, the written Torah, the written Torah evolves from what's beyond, from God's wisdom that's beyond the Torah, and then from the written Torah evolves the oral Torah, and each one is only a tiny little ray of what was of the previous levels. And then we were talking how the Torah emanates through a tiny little divine hair. And then how the oral, you'll remember it now, how the oral Torah is only nibbling at the written Torah. Because most of the richness of the written Torah is not transmitted to the oral Torah. Remember, we learned there's 4 levels. Letters, the vowelizations, the crowns, and finally the trup, the song. And these were levels. And if you remember then, this whole evolution of Torah, till it's able to be digestible to us, this whole evolution of Torah is captured in a story. Which story? When Rivka goes down to the well to drill with the bucket, to pull the bucket, and then she pours to the servant. That whole story, we learned it last year, is all a depiction on a cosmic level of how Rivka is drawing Rebecca, is drawing forth the Torah from its infinite, unknowable place. This discourse is seemingly a sister discourse to that. The discourse we learned then was from the Alter Rebbe. This discourse is from the Tzemach Tzedek, the Alter Rebbe's grandson. I'm sure there is new things here, because all the Rabbeim always added new. And even if there wasn't, it still would be good, a refresher to learn it again. But I think there is. I didn't finish the discourse, learning it myself, and I wasn't planning to teach the whole thing tonight. Just went through the beginning of it, and hopefully we're going to go through the first 3 chapters and leave the last 2 chapters, which are longer chapters, for next week. With that, we will conclude. So here we go. In Genesis, in this week's Torah portion, Parshas Chayei, it describes how Avraham is sending his servant Eliezer to seek out, to search for a wife for his son, for the proper wife for his son Isaac, for Yitzchak. And Eliezer leaves his master's estate with 10 camels loaded up with every type of richness, of riches and gold and silver and anything of valuable. And he was coming as a really rich man down to Haran, which is in Mesopotamia, So he's traveling north from the land of Israel up towards Iraq, towards that area. And over there is where he goes to Abraham's family, Avram, because Avram said, don't take a wife for my son from anybody else but other than my family, from my cousins. He goes there, he makes a sign, he doesn't know how is he going to find the right girl. He makes a sign with God, he's looking for a girl who's very charitable, very giving. So he makes a sign with God, he says, I'm going to go over to one of the girls, I'm going to ask them to give me the drink and for my camels. And the girl who is going to be willing to do that, which means that shows that she's gracious and kind, and that's at least going to be the onset that this is probably the right one. And obviously he's going to have to find out if she's from the right family. If it is, bingo. So the story is that immediately, as soon as he arrives there, first of all, there was a big miracle. It was like a 10-day journey with camels. But as the Torah says, the day that he left, he arrived. He experienced what's called kfitzas haderech, the leaping of the way, or the shortening of the way, which is a great miracle. And then when he got there, he didn't have to make his trial with many girls to sort out, oh, not this one, not this one, not that one. The first girl that he saw and the first girl that he asked was the right one. And this is obviously Rebecca, and then he brings her back. He negotiates with the family. They agree to marry off their daughter to become, so to speak, the princess, marrying the Abraham, who was known to be already a great prince, a great nobleman. And this was his son. And his renown was all over as a teacher, as a master, as a leader of humanity. You know, those days Abraham had an enormous following. So Rebecca goes and and then they get married and they build the first Jewish family. That's the story. So we're going to learn the significance of this story, and primarily we're going to focus on what the Torah describes, how Rebecca, went down to the spring. There was a spring, and she would go down. In order to draw the water, she would have to go down to the spring, pull with her pail, lower her pail, and draw up the water, which is not easy to draw water. It's hard to pull water out. Water is heavy. Right? Especially to bring enough water for 10 camels is an enormous amount of water. And here she's doing it with excitement, with fervor, with love, just because her heart is filled with kindness. That's the story. So we're going to see that this has a great spiritual significance as well, because we know that our matriarchs, Rebecca's the second one of our matriarchs, in addition to them being physical human beings down here, were also divine powers embodied in them. The patriarchs and the matriarchs were really godliness cloaked in a physical body. And therefore the story has metaphysical meaning as well. So let's read over here. So it says that as soon as Eliezer said his prayer, when he arrived to the outskirts of the town, it says he offered his prayer to God, that God should help him, and this is the sign that he's making. And as soon as he finished, even it says, Terem kilon ladaber, even before he concluded his prayer. For Rivka Yotzas, and Rebecca was coming out, meaning out of the town. She was going towards the well. The kadal Shichmah, she's carrying a jug on her shoulder. She was going to get water, I guess, for the family, for the flocks, or whatever. So now let's see Aleph. So he begins. So we know the Torah that we have. There is the written Torah and there is the oral Torah. So Torah Shebiksav, the written Torah, which is mainly it's the 5 books of Moses, but then there is also later the rest of the scripture. So scripture is called Torah Shebiksav, the written Torah. Ubchenas Chachma, its spiritual origins is the divine wisdom. We know there are 10 attributes. The first of those 10 attributes is called wisdom, Chachma, and the Torah Shebiksav, the written Torah, is directly derived from the first attribute called Chachma. Because as the Zohar states, that the Torah, Oraisa, which is the Torah, emerges from the supernal wisdom. It's God's wisdom. That's why the Torah is so infinitely meaningful, because it's directly a download of God's wisdom. Now, when we say that the Torah comes from God's wisdom, so we have to realize as follows. In Sefer Yetzirah, in the book of formation, it says as follows, an ancient Kabbalistic book, which is attributed that Abraham actually was the one who wrote that book. Some say it was Rebbe Akiva, but there's different opinions to the author of the book of Yetzirah. In any case, in that book it says, Gimel Noivloi Sen. There are three things or three entities where there is that drop. Noivlois means they fall down, and there are like, what would you call it when you have a tree and you have fruits that fall from the tree? The fallen fruit. That's called noivel, when something falls. Now usually, as he's going to say in a moment, the better fruit on the tree, the farmer, whoever is the orchard, the one in charge, is very, very careful, and he picks them immediately when they're ripe. Doesn't let them sit on the tree. Sometimes there's fruit there that is not of the finest. It's not going to produce the best, whatever, oil or the best, whatever it is that's growing on the tree. So you let them sit on the tree, and eventually they fall down. So usually it's the lower quality fruit that fall down. So the Zohar says there are three things that are super precious, but if we really investigate and research where they come from, we see that they are the nether of that level. They're really the backside of it. They're the insignificant part of it. And the Zohar says like this: there is the God's wisdom, Chachma, wisdom, Noivlois Chachma, what is like the backside of Chachma, and therefore what falls down from Chachma, like drops from the tree, not the inside, but the outside of wisdom, that is Torah. So when we say Torah is God's wisdom, we recognize that it's still behind, because it's studyable, it's readable to us. We're reading something, we're connecting to something. And understanding how the infinite gap that exists between us and God. So we can understand that the Torah, which we say comes from the wisdom of Hashem, in Sefer Yetzirah it says that it's Noivlois Chachma. It's the dripping of Chachma, of what falls down from the Chachma. What is Noivlois? Gimel Noivlois. So the novel of Chachma is Torah. Then there it says there's a novel of Bina, what falls from Bina. I don't remember what it says in Sefer Yetzirah is what falls from Bina. And there's one more dropping from another lofty place, which is something else. Okay. But over here we're going to focus on Torah. So what is Noivlois? Noivlois, hein te'enim shenoiflim. Noivlois are figs, for instance, if it's a fig tree. It's figs that fall, mina ilon, from the tree. Shem oisam shaloi nigmeru b'shulan. Which ones are the ones that end up falling of the tree? Maybe the late bloomers that at the time of the picking, when the farmer and the people that are out there, the field people that are picking the fruits, they're not taking them because they haven't been ripe on time. They're the latter ones. The psoilos haperos. So they are the weaker end, the inferior element of the fruits, levat. Avol mepchenas haperos hanishadim in a ilon, but it's from the fruits that are left over on the tree. Yes, it's coming from the tree, and from the most leftover part of it. The same is also above. The inner part of God's wisdom is beyond. It's just impossible to know, to connect to to have any relationship to. B'chinas Chachmi lo d'Atzilus, the supernal level of wisdom of the world of Atzilus. Chakim v'loi b'chachma yediyah, the level in which we say on that he is wise, but not with the knowable wisdom. L'mayla min hasaga is utterly beyond any grasp. Any type of grasp, not only of human, but any limited being, any creature, and even any spiritual being. To know and to grasp anything of the divine wisdom, of the essential wisdom of God, utterly beyond. What then? V'nikra b'chinas ayin, and that level is called, Chachma is called ayin, nothingness. Because it's so infinite, it's so pre-definition, so it doesn't have anything to limit it, any character that limits it, because that would mean that would be right, the character and the limitation, that would be a limitation to the light. Chachma is so lofty, so one with the Ein Sof. And that's why it's called ayin. Ayin, nothing. When we're saying nothing over here, we mean a nothingness that's higher than something. Not nothing because it's valueless. It's so high that it doesn't have any boundaries to define it, that we can call it something. Shu bittul betachlis, it is completely nullified to God himself. Because even this level of Chachma is not God. It's Hashem's Chachma. But it's completely subservient and surrendered to him. And because of that, it has no self at all. It's just melted into Hashem himself. And because it is so not something, because it is so not into itself, it is so aware of its infinite source, of God being its source, so it's completely nullified. Precisely because of that inside Chachma we know God himself dwells. So Chachma is like just the vessel. It's a container for God. Why is it a container for the Ein Sof, for the infinite one, literally? Is because it is in a state of ayin, of complete nothingness, and doesn't have any existence, any self, which would therefore limit it, constrain it, and make it limited, and God cannot dwell in a limited entity. When we say God can't dwell, we mean God can't reveal himself in something that's limited, or reveal himself in his infinity to something that's limited. But because the Chachma is so nullified to Hashem, so ayin, so nothingness, it's for that reason it is one with the Ein Sof. Okay, hold on. And that's the reason why there is the enclothement of the Ein Sof, in a very close way. It says that what makes Chachma stand out more than all the other consequential sfirot and attributes, and Chachma is called Breishis, Chachma is the first. Chachma is the closest to the Ein Sof. It's almost like the nest where the Ein Sof can dwell. And even though through Chachma, God dwells in all the other sefirot, Chachma serves as the anchor, the landing port, so to speak, the landing of platform for the Ein Sof to dwell, and through Chachma, God fills all the other sefirot. However, but even though the other sefirot, the other attributes, also have an imbuing of the Ein Sof flowing in them, but there is a difference. Chachma is considered close to God. Hashem reveals himself to Chachma up and close. To the other sefirot, God is shining upon them, but more from a distance. He doesn't have that close relationship to them. And that's because they don't have the same nothingness like Chachma. The quality that is needed to be a vessel for God is not to be a something. Extreme humility. Chachma is the epitome of humility, of self-effacement. Because of that, There's no blockage, and God can reveal himself in Chachma. Kemavur b'Likutei Amarim, as explained in Tanya. Umash, in chapter, I think, 35. Umash and nimshach b'Bchinas HaChachmei La. So, what is drawn? Now, so Torah, however, when you open up a Chumash, when you open up a book of Torah, you read the Torah, you're reading already something that has substance. Yes, you realize it's a very high substance. Yes, we realize that we have no clue what the Torah is talking about, in essence. We're kind of like, nibbling here, nibbling there, but we know that this is so holy, this is so godly, and no matter how many interpretations we give, we realize it's beyond us. Okay? That's the way we should all feel when we learn Torah. That Torah is completely beyond us. But yet, you still have information that you're crunching. You have some grasp. It's like we discussed that if the Torah doesn't have any letters, it's just a plain parchment, then there's no grasp at all. The supernal whiteness. So the Chachmah, the wisdom of God, he says, that's like the pure parchment before there's any letters. And therefore you have no grasp at all what you're looking at. You're looking at nothingness. It's clean, simple. Then, once there's letters is already shapes and forms. So what he's saying is, for the Torah to emerge, there has to be a falling down of the Chachmah. Because the Chachmah in its innate state is just nothingness. A supernal nothingness. Has no letters to it. Has no definition. Like we see when generally in our own Chachmah experience, that when we conceive an idea, the original conception of an idea, the flash of a concept, a flash of wisdom that illuminates our mind, usually doesn't have any words. The initial flash, you don't sense any letters there. You don't sense any words. It's just, because in Chachmah there's no words. It's just light, pure light, blinding light, without any words to it. The words come later. So our Torah that we're learning has already words to it. For that reason, he says, it to its source, it's coming from Chachmah. But it's noivleis, it's like the tree, like the fruits that fall from the tree. There is a dimension of Chachmah far beyond what is captured in the Torah. In the letters of the Torah. In the book of the Torah, in the scroll itself, you probably have the Chachmah itself. But what we're saying is what we're engaging, when we're learning, when we're studying, we're engaging the letters. And on that level, it's only the noivlois, it's the falling of the Chachmah, as he says. Umash and nimshach b'bchinas chachmei la kanal. And that which is coming from the supernal Chachmah downward. L'ishavois oisias haTorah, to bring about the letters of the Torah, einoi elam b'bchinas acharayim, is only from the backside, v'chitzonius hachachma, and it's only the external element of the Chachmah, shenikra psailas, which is called really inferior fruits. It's the lesser element. Shu oisiyas haTorah, which is the letters of the Torah. It's interesting, you have to be careful. He's not saying the Torah itself. He's saying the letters of the Torah. Because when God gave us the Torah, he gave us his entire wisdom. Not only did he give us his wisdom, he gave us himself with the wisdom, as it says. God says, I'm giving you me. What we mean over here is the words that we're learning. That which we're, on the level that we're engaging with it. Other than when we were dancing with it on Simchas Torah. Because when we're dancing it on Simchas Torah, we're dancing with the whole thing. That's why when we dance on Simchas Torah, we dance with the Torah closed. Because we realize we want to bond with the parchment, not with the letters. We want to go way beyond any kind of definitions. We want to just melt into the infinite light that's beyond. It's the holiness of the Torah itself. But the letters of it is only the Acharayim and the Chitzonius, Shu Noivlois Chachmah, which is only the drippings of Chachmah, what the Torah drops down, Kamoshi Yisbar. Okay, now I do want to make an important statement over here. When he says that the Torah is the drippings of Chachma, and it seems like he's referring to Chachma of Atzilus, the wisdom. But we're going to see later in the discourse, he's not referring to Chachma of Atzilus. Because Chachma of Atzilus means Chachma of the first world of Atzilus is already called revealed Chachma. Because Atzilus is a revealed world. It's about emanation, it's about revelation of God. And Chachma is the beginning of revelation. So, and that's the Torah. In Atzilus, the Torah is the Chachma, not just the drippings of Chachma. When he says that the Torah is only the backside of Chachma, he means the level of Chachma where Chachma is part of Keter. It's called Chachma Stima, the hidden Chachma. It would be in the human experience, it would be not your revealed intelligence, but your power in the superconscious from where intelligence comes from. The supermind that produces ideas, that's above a person's knowledge, a person's wisdom. There is the wisdom, the ideas that you know, the active intelligence, and there is the pre-intelligence. When we say the level of Chachma is called ayin, and it's utterly beyond words, and it's infinitely higher than Torah, and Torah is just a dropping of it, means it's referring to the level of the pre-intelligence, the power from where all intelligence of. Now that is for sure ayin, utterly nothing, because we don't know our pre-intelligence. So take that in God, the level of which is called the power of Chachma that is in the Ein Sof, that is part of the Keter, that is part of the Ein Sof. That's not a book. That's not words. That's one with God Himself. Ayin, utterly nothing. From there emanates revelation. That's the Torah. Torah is already. So sometimes we say the Torah is Chachma Ilah, is the higher Chachma. Sometimes we say it's only a dropping of Chachma Ilah. It's only the backside of it. So which one is it? The answer is, when we say Chachma Ilah, we have to realize what we're referring to. Sometimes Chachma Ilah, when Chachma Ilah is referred to as Atzilus, the Chachma of Atzilus, then the wisdom of Atzilus, then the Torah is one with that level. However, when we're talking about Chachma Stima, the Chachma of Keser, the unknowable Chachma, the Chachma that's before revelation, of any conscious revelation of ideas, beyond ideas, it's what produces all ideas. From that level is where we say that it's only a tiny little drop, and utterly inconsequential to its source, and nothing from where it comes from. And there's where it says in Sefer Yetzirah, Noivlois Chachma, the drippings of Chachma is Torah. Now, what I just said, even though he doesn't say it here, later you'll see it's going to become clear that that's what we're talking about. Okay. So that's the first emergence of Torah. Torah emerges from the Ein Sof, from the complete ayin, and when it emerges, only the hindsight of that power drops down into the consciousness of the cosmic order to create divine ideas, godly ideas, which is called the written Torah, the oral Torah. I'm sorry, the written Torah, Torah Shebiksav. But we all know that, as I mentioned earlier, the Torah Shebiksav, as much as it's words, and there's already a storyline, and there's already commandments, and there's some kind of an idea, some kind of a sense of what God desires and wants, and what's the story, what are the divine characters that God wants us to inculcate within ourselves. By reading the Torah, you get a sense of the divine. but it's still super, super, super vague and super mysterious and super lofty. And therefore we have very little concrete information about what God really wants. For that, the Torah needs to download a second time. The first download is from it to come from the pre-intelligence into intelligence. And that download itself is an enormous contraction, an enormous condensation of descending and diminishing the light. But once it's the written Torah, it needs a second diminishment and a second for it to translate into the oral Torah. The oral Torah takes one word of Torah and turns it into an entire tractate with details and details and details and nuances. But then you know how to conduct your life. You know how to keep Shabbat. You know how to keep kosher. You know all the details. It's only elaborated in Torah Shabbat Peh. But here's the thing. The more it gets into explanations, the more it goes into vessels, which means that the definitive ideas, the weaker the light is. So most of the light, therefore, of the written Torah, which is only a tiny little droplet of the pre-written Torah. The written Torah is only a tiny droplet from the pre-written Torah. Then the oral Torah is only a droplet from the written Torah. Most of the divine content that is in the words of the Torah, in the letters of the Torah, in the words of the Torah, never become explained, is not opened up in the oral Torah. Maybe, just a few little droplets. That's the descent. So now he says, "V'nei Torah shebal peh." Now, the oral Torah, who pirush is an explanation on Torah shebiksav, on the written Torah. Torah shebiksav, because the written Torah ain't mefurish heitiv, it's not explained well. Kol mitzvahs, the commandments are not explained well there. What do you mean not explained? You don't know how to keep the commandments. Lefi shesharsham, and that is mechachmi Allah shalamayla ma'asag. Since the Torah shebiksav, although it came down to a place of grasp, but since it's coming from a place that's utterly nothing, as we discussed earlier, it's fruits that fall down, but they fell down from the tree. They fell down from the ayin, from the utter nothingness. So even what falls down into the written Torah still has a flavor of nothingness. In other words, you have a sense when you're reading it that you don't get what it's talking about. You feel its loftiness. You sense its holiness. It's beyond. And that's why, and that's the reason why from the Torah we don't know, we don't have concrete information. Because it comes from Chachmei Allah. And again, what do we mean by Chachmei Allah? By Chachmei Allah we mean over here Chachma Stima, the closed Chachma, the Chachma that it's impossible to know. Shalamayla Ma'asaga, that's higher than grasp. So some of that flavor is still felt in the written Torah. Rak, it's only after, from there it goes through another screening and another filtration and another diminishment and condensing. Notice there's first one download and there is a download from the download. It has to get processed twice. Once it processes a second time and it drops down to a way, way, way lower, inferior level where the lights are diminished tremendously, then you're not sensing anymore its infinity, its boundlessness. And then you can start making out some of the details and some of the characterizations till you can really, really understand it. obviously, what are you understanding? What God allows you to understand in the tiny little, but there we can fully understand. But we always have to remember that the lemon or it could be squeezed much more. It's just that what we squeezed over here is just hardly anything. But now, in other words, Kabbalistically, it means like this. The Torah originates in Chachma Stima, the higher Chachma, which is in Keter. Then it's utterly unknowable. From there, the Chachma goes down into Chachma, into the revealed Chachma. That's when it's Torah Shebeksav, that's the written Torah. From there, it descends into Malchut. When it goes into Malchut, Malchus is Torah Shebal Peh. Malchus is the oral Torah. Malchus is the lowest level. And over there, it's specified and detailed and so forth. When it comes in Torah Shebal Peh, Bolidei Giloi, it comes to revelation, Lefaresh, to explain Kol Pratei HaMitzvahs, all the details of the mitzvahs. Elechei Nikra Torah Shebal Peh, that's why it's called the oral Torah, B'chinas Dibur, it's called speech. Malchus Peh, because over here, it becomes spoken, it becomes articulated, it becomes explained. It's something that we can now discuss. However, don't think that don't think that Torah Shebal Peh, the oral Torah, is able to download and explain and expound upon everything, the entire Torah Shebeksav, that it takes everything that's in the file, the original file, and transports it into a human language, into our language. No. It only captures the most external part of it. Just like we said, the written Torah receives from the utterly unknown Torah also just an external element. It doesn't come to revelation in the outside, in the oral Torah. Only the backside, and the external Torah Shebeksav of the written Torah. Only a ray, mehem, af. Well, I find, by the way, lots of words that are not clear here. You can see that there were many print mistakes. Sometimes if you feel uncomfortable making your own, but it's clear. Certain places you mamish see that it's just the typesetter misquoted some words. But in any case, the word af ha-mitzvahs is interesting over here. But b'chinas ha'ara ba'alma mehem, which it seems like later from the Maimon what he means with mitzvahs is what you are translating in Torah Shebal Peh, in the oral Torah, is just the commandments that are in Torah Shebeksav. In other words, it says you should keep Shabbat, you can keep Shabbos. It gives you the details of the mitzvah of Shabbos. It tells you to keep, I don't know, which other, whatever mitzvah? Kosher. So the Torah Shebal Peh elaborates on the mitzvah of kosher. What's kosher, what's not kosher? What doesn't it explain? There's so much more than the mitzvahs in the Torah. It's a hidden divine code. And we're going to soon see later, every letter in the Torah has trillions of worlds that it is creating and sustaining. It's universes upon universes. And they're all in these letters. No one decodifies that. Torah Shebal Peh doesn't discuss that. Torah Shebal Peh doesn't, the oral Torah doesn't begin to analyze the letters themselves like we discussed a year ago in that mimer. Definitely doesn't analyze the crowns that are on the letters or the vowels, and for sure not the song that's to it. Okay, these are all levels that are higher and higher and higher. It's not exploring it. It doesn't open it up. It gives you just the content of the sentences. In other words, when you read the story or you read the mitzvah, so it explains the nuances of the mitzvah, but not the code that's in all these divine letters. Torah Shebal Peh does not touch it. With all the commentary that there is in Torah Shebal Peh, no one has even touched the opening up of each letter of the Torah. What does it mean? All of that, we're going to have a good time once Mashiach comes. That's what Mashiach is going to teach us. He's going to take us into these infinite journeys into the Torah. And he's going to blow our minds with and for how long? Forever. Avo pnimius Torah shebiksav. That's what he's saying. But the internal element of the Torah shebiksav, shehem, which they are, tamim is the song. Each word, the Torah is not a cold, dry, stale document. The Torah is a song. It's meant to be studied with a song. As we see when we read it on Shabbat in the shul, we read it with, or anytime we read the Torah in a public reading, we read it with special tune. Now, the significance of what that means, no one knows. Shehem, as he says, tamim, the song. Nekudos are the vowelizations. Tagin are the crowns. Mysteriously in the Torah, some letters get crowns, and some letters don't get crowns. And then different amounts of crowns. Crowns are these little lines on the top of the letter. What do they mean? They have enormous divine meaning. Or oisor letters, einam barladei gilui klal. All of that does not reveal itself at all. Vehem shenikron almin stimen, and they're all called. These letters are these crowns. They're called concealed worlds. Each one of them is a world. It's a universe. The law is Galian, and they're not revealed. They're not in a revealed way at all. Now, besides very few people in history who got to peak at these levels of Torah, most of the rabbis remained relegated to the simple interpretation of mitzvot. And that they explained the halacha of it, geniuses. But most of them are relegated to Torah Shebal Peh and stayed within that borders. From time to time, there is this heavenly sage that gets access to certain dimensions that no one ever peeked at, which means to these deeper meanings of Torah. Who is one of those? Kashamavur ala Arizal, like it says regarding the Holy Ari. Shayei Yashin, he was sleeping on Shabbat. One Shabbos afternoon, he lay down to sleep. And his lips were moving. And a student came in and he saw the Ari talking in his sleep, kind of moving his lips. When he woke up, so the student realized that the Holy Ari was learning something. That's why he can see that he's saying his Veheshev, and he said to him, he was studying something. He said to him, what did you study then? If they were to sit and write down for 80 years to transcribe what he saw in that half an hour sleep, or here I think it says he slept for 2 hours. In that period that the Ari was sleeping, if he was going to try to download that into and to transcribe that into books, his students would, even if they would be writing for 80 years, they would not be able to. He would not be able to transcribe Mashara Beregazu. This is what he saw in that instant. What does that mean? That means that it can't mean that he saw just, that he was reading the letters of the Torah. He was reading, because to interpret letters, you can interpret it. But he was reading deeper than the letters. He was reading deeper than the content in the letters. He was being shown the letters themselves, the mysterious infinite worlds of the letters. He was being shown the the who knows, elements of the crowns. I don't even know if he got to the vowelizations or he got to the songs, but he definitely got to a zone that others don't go, is perception of Torah. V'hainu, and the reason is, because he was privy to see and to grasp in the inside of Torah, not the external part of Torah that we discussed earlier. That you cannot bring it down in speech. And that's why he says, even 80 years will not capture what I saw. And this is the reason why it says in Parshas V'zos HaBracha, in Deuteronomy, the last Torah portion, when it opens up how Moshe says how God gave the Torah to the Jewish people. So it says over there, V'zarach miseir, that Hashem shined to the Jewish people. Hashem was shining and radiating to the Jewish people. Miseir, from the city of Seir. Seir was a Edomite city. Simply it means that God said, I emerged from the direction of Seir. Hoifia, he appeared, Mehar Paran, from Mount Paran. Mount Paran is Arabia, meaning where the children of Yishmael lived. And Seir is associated with Esau, with Edom. And this, the sages say, means that God first went and offered the Torah to the Arabs, and he also offered the Torah to the Edomites, the various different Gentiles. They rejected it. So then God came to the Jewish people. That's the simple meaning of the verse. But and we'll soon see a much deeper meaning. But in continuation to that, it says, Va'asa, and he came, Me'rivivais Kodesh, with myriads of holy beings. That simply this, as Rashi says, it means that when he descended on Mount Sinai, he came with myriads of angels. He came with an entourage. Revealed himself down in this world with a whole parade. The Alter Rebbe is going to learn as follows. That when it says he shined forth from hair, from Seir, Seir also means hair. That's referring to the Torah emerging from its quintessential heights. All the way from Keter, from the crown. That what was emerging? A tangible Torah. Which Torah? The written Torah, from the pre-written Torah, from the pre-wisdom of God. That's coming through a hair. But that we're going to learn about later. Once the Torah downloaded already into the written Torah, then it says, Va'asa me'rivivos kodesh. And he came, and he's coming forth, which means he's revealing to us with the myriads of angels. That's referring to the next descent of the Torah. He's coming down. From where? From the written Torah to the oral Torah. Now it uses, now how do you know? He wants to prove, how do you know that by doing that he was diminishing? Most of the written Torah stays behind, and only the tail end of it is revealed. Only the external part is revealed. Only a diluted element is revealed. Where do you see that? You see that because the Torah uses the term, for he came, Hashem was coming, he emerged, he came forth. It uses an Aramaic word. Even though it's Torah, Torah usually speaks the holy tongue. It doesn't use a Hebrew word, it uses an Aramaic word. Now Aramaic means translation, because the Aramaic was used as translation for Torah. The fact that the Torah is using a word from Aramaic means to describe the emergence of the Torah is to tell you that there was an act of translation taking place. God had to translate from the divine language to the created language. Now when you translate, generally when you translate something from language to language, something gets lost in the translation. Especially if you're translating from a divine code to a human code, to a human science and discipline, so that's what happened. Va'asa, he came forth using the Targum is giving us this idea that now it was downgraded tremendously. As it says, and this is the reason why it says Va'asa, that he came Shu B'Lashon Targum, which is in Targum, because when it's coming forth, it's only coming from the backside. And only array. These are myriads and myriads of contractions. To conceal the essence of the Chachma, which remains hidden. Shenikra Kodesh, which is called holy. Shelo Yumshach, it shouldn't come down. Raka Ora Chitzainis Ba'alma. Only an external part of it should be transmitted downward into the oral Torah so that we can understand it. Because if the blinding light of the wisdom of God would be present, it would blind us. We wouldn't see anything. V'asa, he comes forth, but in Targum, Keniskaliel, which means in translated language, Keniskaliel, as we said before. By the way, I forgot to say, this discourse is printed, for those who would like to look at find the discourse, in the book Torah of the Tzemach Tzedek, the 7th volume of Breishis, page 2418. Okay. Va'ata, now we go to chapter 2. Va'ata Yuvan. Now we'll also understand the beginning of the verse. In the beginning of the verse says that he was. Which verse? What talks about by the giving of the Torah? It says that he came forth from Seir, which we explained earlier means from the land of Seir. But on a deeper meaning, it's talking about an earlier stage of the Torah coming out. The latter part of the verse, which says Va'asam Eriva V'Is Kodesh, is the written Torah transmitting to the oral Torah. But first we need to bring forth the written Torah. That is even a greater contraction. Because that's coming from the infinity of God. For that to come down into even into a divine code, but a limited discipline, a limited godly science. We say limited, we mean compared to the Ein Sof, to the undefined. Over here, the contraction and the dilution, the diluting process has to be way more extreme. And that's hinted to where it says, V'zarach, he's shining forth, me seir. Seir is a hair. Indicating that imagine taking a human being's mind and trying to get what's inside his brain through putting your mouth. Imagine you want to drink someone's brains out. All their wisdom. So you want to stick in a tube in their brain, and I'm talking about literally download all the information. But you're doing it through one hair follicle. That's the idea. The concept is that the hairs that we have grow next to the head, because every hair has life, and every hair is a tube. There's life in the hair, but it's very, very minute. And where is the life coming from? From the access of the brain. The brain is the seat where the most energy is at. So there's like a little bit extra, it's like bubbling, comes out. You don't see it, but it's the hair. But there's so little brain power in the hair that it's so insignificant. So much so that even the tiniest little scratch in the brain can cause the worst damage in the human being. The smallest injury of the brain. Brain injury is very, very severe. But the hair, you can cut it off. It doesn't even hurt. You don't feel anything. And losing a hair or not losing a hair doesn't make a difference in your life. It's nothing. Yet, it comes from there. So what we're saying is that the entire Torah, the entire written Torah, is coming from just a little hair from God. From God's hidden mind, from his hidden wisdom. Let's read it inside. You now will understand that he was shined forth from Seir Lamoy, Shenemar, which it says, Al Torah Shebiksav, that's referring to the written Torah, which is the higher Chachma, Shenimshach, that is drawn. Here is where you can see clearly what I said at the beginning, that when he said it's only a dropping from Chachma, Chachmi, he means higher than Chachma. Chachma Stima, the concealed Chachma. Torah itself, Torah Shebiksav, that's Chachmi Allah of Atzilus. That's the higher Chachma of the world of Atzilus. But it's drawn Shenimshach Melamaylam in Chachma. It's coming from beyond Chachma, rak, from beyond wisdom, rak b'pchina Cyrus, only through a hair. K'hine yadua, because it is known. The b'chinas Chachmi Allah d'Atzilus, that the supernal Chachma, the supernal wisdom of the world of Atzilus, Shureishas Ishtal Shalus, which is considered the beginning of the evolution of worlds, evolution of creation. Everything in creation evolves from Chachma. So we know that from Chachma comes Bina. From wisdom comes understanding. From understanding comes knowledge. From knowledge comes the emotions. The emotions are born. And so the various different stages of human experience all evolve one from the other. One thing leads to the next. So we know the way they work is that you can see the connection between one and the other. In each one you can see how this is a foundation for the next. And how one leads to the other. And how this next level begins inside the first level, like a chain that's locked, one link with the next link, where the lower link enters into the space of the higher link, interlocked. So you can see, for instance, when emotions come from ideas, a person has an idea, certain clarity in their mind, and then it creates a certain emotion, a certain excitement. So you can, if you look subtly, you can see, you can explain why such an understanding would lead to this emotion. And that's part of psychology. There's a lot of times when people have very, very struggling with dark emotions or painful emotions or whatever, you try to like recreate a new thought patterns, different ways of understanding, which hopefully if you'll reframe the event, the story, your understanding of what's going on, and you train your mind to think of it in a certain way, it will reshape the emotion, because the emotion is a derivative of the way of understanding. So over here, where one thing comes from the other, there is a closeness between A and B, and then B and C. So what he's saying is, from Chachma onward, whatever flows from Chachma onward, Chachma to Bina, so we're not going to get into what that all means, but assuming that those that are coming to the class here have already studied these ideas, over here is where one thing is overlapping and connecting one to each other. But all of that works from Chachma until Malchut, through all the Sfirot. But from Chachma, which is the first, to beyond Chachma, over there is a gap. There is an absolute unbridgeable gap. There is a separation. And you cannot say, the Chachma evolved from that. Now, the Chachma had to come from somewhere. But where Chachma comes, Chachma is like an orphan. It doesn't have a parent. It like drops out of nowhere. Here it is without a source. Because now we know there is a source, but its source is so lofty and so beyond Chachma that you can't make the connection between Chachma to. You can't climb from Chachma into its source. It's a closed place. It's beyond. That's what he's explaining here. So, the Shureshis Ishtalshalus, there's Ishtalshalus, L'bchinas Bina to Bina, which is understanding. Umidois Tatzilus, and the emotions of the world of Atzilus. Ad Bchinas Malchus Tatzilus, all the way down until the attribute of kingship of Atzilus. Shumakar L'Savus Yesh Meyayin, which we know that Malchus is the beginning of the creation of worlds. Something from nothing, Shem Alachim, which are angels, V'neshamis, and souls. Dibiyah of the three lower worlds, Bria, Tzir, and Asiya. So all of that, this entire system of attributes, all of this nikra hishtalshalus, it's all called a evolution, ila va'alol, cause and effect. Just like Chachma Tabina Shem Erech Zelazeh, they have a compare. They are connected one to each other. And the same is from the bina to the emotions. The atzilus of atzilus. The Yuvin calls a Yotzas will understand all of this better, bepratius, more specifically. Aydei mashal, by giving an analogy, mipsari, from our own physical flesh. Bekoiches hanefesh, in the powers of the soul. Kihine on a roy, we see in our own human experience. That in general, our emotions are a derivative of our intelligence. In accordance to how the intelligence are developed within the person, depending on what kind of school you go, what kind of exposure you have, what kind of ideas that you expose yourself to or that you've been exposed to by your educators and teachers, that's going to create your emotional, the things that get you upset. Right? That's why we have to be so careful today when we send our kids off to school, to colleges. Who are the professors? What kind of ideas, what kind of philosophies do they have? And they're impressing upon young minds. They're creating thinking patterns. They're creating ways of understanding for these children to think and develop their minds in a certain pattern of thinking. And as a result of that, they will create emotions or develop emotions, which those emotions are going to be in sync with what these professors have been teaching. And that's why you'll have, youths that they get excited, whether passionate and fighting for certain things. In today's days, you see many ways, in very undesirable ways, in very corrupted ways, because you have a whole system of professors and teachers who are teaching certain ideologies and ideas. So that's in the negative, sadly, in America and in many places. When you have good teachers who educate and teach good information, then the students will grow, not just intellectually, but emotionally, to be driven for good, just, holy, and moral, godly causes. So we see clearly that the intelligence forges the emotions, and the emotions are built on the intelligence. As he says, we see is from the intelligence. According to the revelation of the intelligence, so will be the emotions. That's why we also find, in terms of the quality of the emotions, that little children who have a very unsophisticated mind, simplistic mind, and their appreciation intellectually is of small things, minor things. They make a to-do and they get very upset over a foolish little silly thing that went wrong in their silly world. You take away something that is so silly and so insignificant, yet to them the entire world was destroyed because they have a small mind. And the same is also they get super excited about silly stuff because now what's the difference between why the emotions of the child are so silly and so immature is because their intelligence is immature. Their mind is immature. They don't have the capacity to understand deeply and on a higher, more valuable things. They see small. So because the emotions are always commensurate and in line with the person's intelligence. Which would not happen with an adult. Whose mind is more developed. His emotions, his or her emotions, are going to be to greater things. The Nimtza comes out that the coming about of the midas of the emotions is from the intellect. It's called mochin. It's called the mochin to the midas, which means the intelligence is almost the batteries to the midas. And this is cause and effect. Well, one thing, just like a cause and an effect, where you can see how this causes this. For example, like an ishtalshalos, like we said earlier, like a chain that's made up of links, where one link is connected to the previous link. The head of one link is plugged into and enters into the space of the other link. Seems like it's missing a few words over here. Here just says the top of this one. It should have say b'toichzu inside this one. As I mentioned to you, this mimer has a lot of seeming to be places where the words have been, typesetter or whatever. Same as also the emotions. First, the emotions are still included in the intellect. And afterwards, the emotions emerge outward like a baby coming from the mother. And then once the intelligence, two things. Number one, first the emotion is included in the parent, in the intellect, just like a baby is included is within the mother before the baby is born. So if you have ideas, contained in these ideas are eventually going to be emotions. Right? Put yourself into certain studies, explore certain elements in the world. You might not feel that it's impacting you emotionally, but it will eventually, because the emotions are subtle. They're being born within the intellectual understanding, within the bonding. You're bonding with whatever it is through understanding and exploring it. So emotionally, you're also going to become connected to it, although you might not see it at the beginning, because the seeds of the emotions are already taking place. Now, later on, when the emotion is already fully expressed and fully revealed, the emotions too have the intelligence now. Now it's the opposite. Now the mother is inside the child, which means the emotion now, the intellect extends itself into the emotion to keep the emotion burning, to keep the fire on the emotion. And the seichel encloses itself into it. Nimtza comes out. The very tail end of the intelligence, is enclosed in the emotion. But this is all to say, this is all within the realm of seichel and midos, which above, intellect and emotions, which above in the divine are the 10 sefirot. Over there, one thing connects to the thing before. But when you're coming to the first of the spheres, which is Chachmah, wisdom, and you're trying to figure out where does the Chachmah come from, its source is mysterious. Its source is not connectable to what it produced. It's producing whatever it's producing from a distance, and the source remains hidden, concealed, obscured. That's why it's called yesh me'ayin, not ilova alol, cause and effect, but something from nothing. Which is in the case of the coming about of the intelligence, coming from beyond intelligence, does not work that way. Over here there's already a leap. It's not like a chain where one link is connected to the other and pervades the space of the previous link. But over here, it's like there's no connection. There's like a big empty gap, and you don't even know how this landed over here. From where? I don't know. From where? I don't know. But we know it's coming from somewhere, but we don't know where. So there is a disconnect. Because the power of seichel, when we say the power of seichel, we don't mean the intelligence. We mean the power that produces intelligence. The power to produce intelligence that's in the soul, which from it comes forth revelations of ideas of intelligence. Is not graspable what it is. What is the supermind? From where ideas are drawn from. We don't know it. It's an unknowable place. It's in our superconscious, and we don't know. And it's not a super intelligence in the sense that it's like it's like a person is born like with this, on a deeper level of our consciousness, with like an enormous mind that has 1 trillion ideas. Or one big super idea, intelligent idea, that's the mother of all the ideas. It's not. Because the source from where intelligence comes from it's not an idea. It's not a seichel. It's not an intellectual thought. What is it? It's an abstract power of the soul that we don't know. It's not of the seichel. The chachma stima, the concealed chachma in keser, which is what this means, as we mentioned it earlier, is not seichel. And therefore we would have to even wonder why it's called chachma. You know why it's called chachma? Because chachma comes from it. Because wisdom stems from it. It itself is beyond the characterization of chachma. And therefore, that seichel comes from it. Conceptual ideas come from it. That's called something from nothing. Something new was created. It's not by means of cause and effect. An enormous leap. Now, as much as it is in our own human experience, we need to understand enormously more is when we're looking at the same concept but in the cosmos, in the spiritual universe above, in the divine realm. When we speak about 10 sfirot, there we can speak about evolution. But when we get to Chachmei Allah, it coming from Keser, from the crown, over there is an Ein Sof separation. The name of Chachma ve'elech, from Chachma onward, Ubchinas Ishtalshel is Ilo ve'olol, cause and effect. Hanikra be'paradise, it's referred to in Paradise. Paradise is the Ramak, which explains this idea. He calls it Ilo ve'olol. But the coming about of Chachma, it's probably supposed to be Milamayla ma'achachma, from above Chachma. Einoi memuhus Chachma klal, is not of the same substance of Chachma at all. V'nikra Chachma stima, it's called the hidden Chachma. Pidur she'einoi musa klal, it's not comprehensible, understandable at all what it is, how it is. And this is the reason why we find that Hashem says when at certain times in history, when God is acting in a strange manner, and it causes a major upheaval, in all of Hashem's creatures and servants, they get very upset and they say, God, it's unbefitting to you to behave in this manner. What are you doing? Hashem's answer to that is, be silent. Shtoik. Silence. Kach alu b'machshava. So arose in my thought. So, simply it means, Hashem is saying, what? Don't argue with me. Don't question me. Fartik. And the truth is, that's what he's saying. But why is he saying? God should say, this is my will. If God really means this is not rational, and it's not logical, and therefore I don't try to explain it. It's a quirk in me that's making me do this. It's not. In other words, it's my will. It's not my intelligence. It's just my will. If that would be the case, then it should have said, "Shtoik, be quiet. Kach Allah biritzayni." So came up in my desire. The fact that he says machshava implies the world of thinking and thought, which relates very closely to intelligence. In other words, there is reason here. But if there's reason, so let's have a conversation. Explain it to me. It's going to take a long time. Okay, we have patience. Start explaining. Start explaining the Holocaust. Start explaining Rabbi Akiva being combed by the Roman tormentors, combing his flesh with metal combs. Start explaining. You can explain it. God is saying, be quiet. Why is he saying be quiet? But then if he's saying be quiet, which means, so I want, so if then let him say that. This is my wish. So he's implying that it is intelligence. That's why he says machshava, but still be quiet. The answer is, I'm operating now from super intelligence, not from conscious intelligence, not from revealed intelligence. It's intelligence because it's the source from where intelligence comes from. So there is a justification on some level that we could never, ever, ever know. And you cannot, even in a million years, explain that because it's not like a deep thought that you can later, develop it until you can understand it, bring it. It's not like we said earlier, like the Arizal understood levels beyond. Because they were talking about, the Arizal went into beyond Torah Shabbat Peh, beyond the letters, and he went into the oisiyos, into the letters themselves, into the nuances of the crowns. Rabbi Akiva went into the crowns. But that's all part already of revealed Chachma. It's just deeper levels of revealed Chachma. But it's all part of the realm of Chachma. Here we're talking about outside the realm of intelligence. Beyond intelligence, but the source of intelligence. Of where all intelligence is produced, but it's of a different substance than knowable intelligence. That's why he doesn't use the word ratzon, because if he would be using ratzon, means it would be nothing to do with intelligence. If he's using the word machshava, it's because he's implying that it is related to intelligence, but it's still silent. But I'm still demanding silence because it's unprobable, unknowable, and therefore just be quiet about it. You can't say that there's no reason here at all. God could have said, I'm being stubborn, I'm doing what I want to do just because I want so, and you can't fight City Hall. This is my will. But that's not what he's saying. The reason he's using machshava, this is the closed level of chachma. A concealed reason. It's not only too deep for you to understand, it's not possible for it to be revealed in the realms of conscious explanation. It's not possible for that to be understood. That's why it appears to us as if it's plain pure stubbornness will without mishigas, like you would say, just crazy desire without any reason. Ki'ilu, like an insane desire. Ki'ilu ratzain b'loi tam, like it's a ratzon, it's a will without a reason. The nikra chachma stima, it's called concealed chachma. Al shehu makara chachma, it's the source of chachma. It's utterly beyond chachma, but because chachma comes from it, and that's what we means. It's some kind of a tam, some kind of a level of tam that we don't even understand what that means. And from there comes this, Now, these two levels of chachma, which is conceivable chachma, and when we say conceivable chachma, we mean even divine conceivable chachma. That's conceivable in the open mind of Hashem, so to speak. Yeah? From that level, eventually trickles down human intelligence. They're connected. And they're connected through a link that connects one level of intelligence to the next level, higher, 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 until eventually you get to the supreme intelligence. But here we're talking about the making of the revealed chachma from the concealed chachma. Over here is a quantum leap, and over here is where there is a separation that is Ein Sof, that is infinite, and that's why it's called Yesh Miyayin. V'zeu hanikra be'etz chayim, and this concept is called in Kabbalah, in the writings of the Ari, the Idra Zuta, and in the Idra is a certain portion of Zohar, where Reb Shimon Bar Yochai reveals crazy secrets to a semicircle of friends. So in that Idra over there, it refers to this level it's called Mazel. B'mazel achid vitalia. The trickle, obviously they're communicating. Obviously, the revealed chachma has to come from somewhere. The energy has to come from somewhere. But it's coming through a drip from an utterly unknowable place. And that's called mazel. Sometimes it's referred to as, mazel is referred to as thin strands of hair. B'mazla achid vitalia. In the mazel is where it's holding on to and hanging. Sha'aba ve'ima, the chachma and the bina, yonkim, they derive their energy mepchenasairos, from the hair, the tkuna diyukna, from the beard of Keser. Keser, the hair of Keser, is the only way that the powerful, infinite lights of Keser are able to go down into the entire infrastructure of existence, including Atzilus and all the worlds, without completely frying it. The infinite energy of God should not obliterate it completely, shock it out of existence. It needs to pass through the greatest dimming and filtration possible. And that's the filtration of a hair. A thin little hair. On the one hand, it's connected to the brain. It's connected to the skull, which is deriving into the brain. But it's not, what's coming through in the hair is not of the intelligence of the mind. If someone would be nursing from someone's hair forever, they will never, ever, ever conceive the ideas of the person's mind. Get yourself a hair in Einstein's head, and sit there and slurp it up. It's not going to happen, because what's coming through the hair, the chayos in the hair, is nothing. That's what he's saying. But yet it comes from there. So that's the two ends of it. So that's why the Arizal in Eitz Chaim and in Zohar, when they're trying to figure out a way of how to explain how Chachma comes from Keser, they use the concept of Mazel, And they use the concept kune de yukna, which is the strands of the beard, hanim shachim, that are coming moyach stima from the moach, from the mind of Keser, from the concealed mind. And now he's going to explain the concept of the hair that we spoke about. And like by way of analogy below. Even though the hairs come from the brain, that's why we find that most of the hair on the body is next to the head. It's only the leftovers of the mind. And when we say leftovers, we mean, like, remember we began the Maimer Noivlois, the backside that's dripping, the insignificant of it. There's no comparison at all to the essence of the mind. Why? As we gave the example earlier, we gave this proof. Because in the brain itself, God forbid, if someone even has the tiniest injury in the brain, treifa, the animal, referring to an animal, the animal is considered not kosher because we consider it that the animal is destined to die. It's a fatal injury, the smallest injury to the brain. Why? Because the entire chayos of a person is dependent on a healthy brain or an animal. But when it comes to the hair, you can give the animal a million times a haircut, which is also you're tampering with the brain energy, and yet you're not diminishing the life of the animal whatsoever. So that's how far the life force that's in the brain, where it's so vital to the entire existence of the person, versus that very same life force once it makes the quantum leap and goes into the hair. It's nothing. From being everything to being nothing. That's how far it is. And here you can cut them off completely. Doesn't even hurt. Which isn't the case with any other of the limbs of the body. If you cut any other part of the body, even though it's not the brain, it hurts because there's real life there. It's real connection to the brain. So too, in by way of analogy, the coming forth and the coming about of Chachma of Atzilus. From the concealed Chachma of Keser, Nimshal B'chinas Cyrus is compared to here, Shazadiluga Eric, which is a huge leap, and not cause and effect. Shemohus ve'etzem e'ela mislabish ba'olu, where one entity is leaning into the next entity, like we say, the mother leans into the child, the links of the chain, one of them is visibly attached to the other and linked up with the other. Like we gave an example from a mashal of a chain. Now, when it comes to here, now why is he speaking so much about the here? Because in the Torah, when it speaks about, again, what's the whole Maimer talking about? The Maimer is trying to explain how the Torah Shebiksav, how the written Torah, emerges from God. So the verse says he emerged from the land of Seir. Seir means from a hair follicle. The entire Torah, the wisdom of the Torah, which is the revealed wisdom of God, is coming from the concealed wisdom. And from the concealed wisdom, it's coming through a tiny little hair. In order for our entire Torah to emerge. And now he's going to be a Pinish Cyrus when it comes to the hair. You do a Gamkein, Shehu Yud Gimel Midois V'noitzer Chesed. We know that the 13 hair, the tikkunim of the beard, right? And the Zohar talks about 13 tikkunim that are in the beard. So it is known that they are the 13 attributes of mercy. 13 attributes of mercy are called the Yud Gimel Tikkune Diyukna. They're like 13 strands of God's beard. What does that mean? So now he's going to explain the relationship of it to midas. Why are we using the term midas? Are emotions? Why are we using the term emotions over here? We're talking about pre-intellect. It's pre-intelligence. Why emotions? What's the connection to it? So he's going to explain the concept of how emotions and hair are connected to each other. So let's see, interesting. The Indian idea is kiyesh, because there is the tzach. What does that mean? Doimein, tzemeach, chai, medaber. There are 4 types of life in this world. There's the inanimate, which is like all mineral. Then there's tzemeach. There's plant and vegetation. There's animal, and there is medaber. There is human. And when each one of these is an entire world. So the human himself also has within himself, both physiologically and psychologically, the human being has within himself all these types of life. So we have within ourselves the mineral. In the human, there's also the mineral. What's that? The bones. The bones are called our substance. That's like the stone in your body, the skeleton of the person. Then there is the hair. The hair is the trees and the plants that grow in a person. Then there is the chai. What's the chai in the person? I think the blood. And then there is the medaber in the person. Let's see what he says. I don't know if he enumerates it here. Medaber yesh gam king kolol doimen tzemeach chai medaber. In the medaber, it also includes all 4. Ki atzamois emchinas doimim. The atzamois, the bones is the doimim. The sairos emchinas tzemeach. And the hair is the tzemeach. And he doesn't explain further. So physiologically, it's interesting. We try to figure that out. Blood, I would think, is the chai, the life, the animal. And what would be the medaber element? Maybe the brain, maybe the intelligence would be the medaber. Not exactly sure. Because he's talking on a level of literally physical, the physical body. Now he's going to say how the human being has doimim, tzemeach, chai, and medaber also in their soul. There's the concept of domain in our spiritual side as well, in the powers of the person, not just in the physical body. Spiritual ones, in the powers of the soul. Hamadaberes of the human, of the person who speaks, which is the human. Now, the inanimate object, the stones, the pure, the minerals, they are in the spiritual human. They are our words. Words and letters make up very much a person's life, because we're all producing words. We're constantly producing words, both words of thought and words of speech. Now, words are fixed. Letters, they're fixed. They don't grow, they don't change. A letter, a word, is a limited, fixed container that holds whatever, but it never changes. The oisius of a person, that's the domim in the soul. The emotions in a person, that's our someach, that's our plants. Physically, it's our hair. Spiritually, it's the emotions. Because what happens to emotions? Emotions are continuously fluctuating. Emotions can get small, they can get large, they grow, they expand, just like trees and plants grow. The emotions are constantly growing within a person. In the beginning, when you first start getting excited about something, it can be a very, very small little plant, a little excitement. And then it grows. That's why the sages teach us almost so much of like being careful what we're exposing ourselves to. Sometimes we think, I'm just gonna familiarize myself a little bit with something. Okay, you know what it does? It plants a little seed, and it starts growing a little branch. And you don't realize it. You start, and it grows and grows, which means there's a certain part of you that starts connecting more and more and more, and then you feel like really, really, really attached to things that you don't want to be attached to. That's because a whole plant grew out, so that emotion developed and attached itself. It can be a love. That's the negative. And the good is also we develop relationships. First we feel slightly attached to somebody or to something. The more we grow the more attention, the more we water it, the more we pay attention to it, the more it can grow and develop into a major emotional attachment. And that is, when it's a good thing, it's a beautiful tree. First it's small, and then it grows bigger. And the intelligence in a person, inside the human psyche, the intellect, that's considered the animal inside of us. What's the connection of intelligence to animal? You would think that the intelligence is the highest, and therefore you would think that the intelligence is the human of the human. To say no. In our set of creatures that exist in our psychological self, the human inside of us, the intelligence inside of us is the animal kingdom within the human. Like it says, he brings a verse. He doesn't explain it psychologically, but he just brings a pasuk to it. It says, V'hachachma techaya. And chachma gives life, but it uses the word techaya, which is related to the word chaya. Why is an animal called chaya? Because it's life. Chachma gives life. And what's the human inside of us? If the what's it called again? If the intelligence is the animal inside of us, so the human is far superior than an animal. So what would be the human inside of us? The human inside of us would be something superior to our intelligence. And what's that? That's the pre-intelligence. That's the chachma stima, the pre-intelligence, where all innovation comes from. Remember we discussed earlier the place that we don't know, but yet it's the superpower that produces everything. That's the real medaber inside the person. Umakar aseichel, and the source of the intelligence, shu b'chinas chachma, which is the chachma. Which chachma? Not the revealed chachma, the concealed chachma. The chachma stima, hu medaber, that's speech. That's the human inside of us, which is the... One would wonder why. What does the super intelligence have to do, the super conscious, have to do with, not okay, human, but why medaber? Medaber, the real reason we call a human medaber is because the human is the only one who communicates through speech. And that's because he says, Kish, we find that what makes the human special as over all other animals is that humans created language. Sophisticated language. There's some level of very, 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 very basic language that animals also have. But a sophisticated language where you can share ideas and pass and develop and build civilization and build a world, it's all because of language and communication. That skill is related to a human being's ability to talk. For that, we have to be able to string together sentences. We have to be able to create words and string together sentences. And the very interesting thing is that God created that inside our systems to happen naturally. It's not something that we need to work on, and we need to, just like an animal doesn't have to ponder and work for a long time for it to be able to start moving its body and its limbs and walking and running. It happens organically to the animal. I like to watch a little of these nature films. So the lion, she has her little lion cubs, and immediately they're already racing around and running and coming and going and jumping. And so is all animals. It doesn't take much. Humans take much longer to educate their kids. The animals, they're out and about just in a few weeks, sometimes in days. they're doing. And there's not it because they're meant to be an animal. So the animal side of the animal, the ability to move and run and from place to place, is something that happens naturally to them, effortlessly. So the speech element, the human is meant to be a communicator and a converser. This element also happens without us consciously trying to make it happen. What happens? This amazing ability to be able to fluently grab letters. And I mean, if one just stands there and analyzes this, it is so incredibly wondrous how we use words and how we're so in control of being able to and it's something that it's happening completely without our consciousness. That whenever you have anything you want to say, you have 1,000 letters, words, and they're all forming together, and you're putting them, you're rolling letters. It's crazy. How? So it's explained in Chassidus, it's not coming from the conscious mind, it comes from the superconscious mind. It comes from the pre-intelligence. The pre-intelligence directs the entire realm of language and makes language possible. That's the reason why the pre-intelligence is called medaber, speech, the talker, because the pre-intelligence directly influences. Now, even though the words themselves, the letters themselves, are domain, are inanimate, the lowest, they're the stones. And again, the letters themselves are stones. But the ability to string together the letters and put them together in sentences and that is coming from the human of the human. The letters themselves are the inanimate in the human, but the ability to organize those letters to words and to sentences and communication, that comes from the pre-intelligence, comes from the human of the human, which is the pre-intelligence, not the intelligence. In other words, if we were to have to figure this out and consciously organize our letters, we would be wasting most of our life trying to say a few sentences, trying to put get it out. Finally you put it together. And it doesn't happen that way. It's all because of the pre-moichen direct that. And here you see an interesting thing. He's going to make an interesting observation. Here's where you see where the lowest power of the person and the highest power of the person are interlocked with each other. Why? Because there's a concept called not tchilasan b'seifan. The beginning is wedged in the end, and the end is wedged in the beginning. So dafka, the letters, which are the domain, the stones in us, they connect and to the human inside of us, skipping the two middle levels of emotion and intelligence, which is plant and animal. Powerful, rich ideas over here. So again, there is the letters themselves, the inanimate. Then there is the plant, which is the emotions. Then there is the intelligence, which is the animal. And then there is the pre-intelligence that produces intelligence, but shows its true power in our ability to converse through speech, to communicate. So now, as he explains, he's explaining why the pre-intelligence is called medaber out of all things. Why not call it maskil? Because it produces seichel. Because the root of the bringing about of speech, shua oisiyos, which is the letters, nilkachu mekadmus haseichel. It comes from the pre-intelligence, shebenefesh, that is in the soul, shalamayla ma'aseichel, that's beyond the intelligence. Kiniske begeres hakodesh, as stated in, we turn over the page, in a Geras HaKodesh from the Alter Rebbe, Vayaz David Shem, that David made a name for. And here he asks the question that I said earlier, aren't the letters the lowest? So why are the letters? And even though the letters are doimeim, harei, nun shin beis. And here is where it gets frustrating, because what in the world does nun shin beis mean? Usually nun shin beis stands for nun share bina. But here it would make no sense at all, nun share bina. So Baruch Hashem, I didn't have to spend much time, it immediately occurred to me that, again, there's a mistake over here. Harei, it's supposed to be nun samach beis. Nun samach beis is not soifan betchilasan. The end is wedged in the beginning. So it's shin is shin, but it's not a shin. I can understand why there was a confusion with a sin and a samach, because a shin and a samach are the same pronunciation. So harei, not soifan betchilasan. The end is wedged in the beginning, which means the letters, which is the inanimate, is rooted in the pre-intellect. Now, just like we are saying what? Here. Just like we are saying that there are four separate levels. In the world, these things exist separately. There are stones, there are plants, there are animals, and there are humans. Right. Now we're saying that in the human himself, there is the stone in the human, the plant in the human, the animal in the human, and the human in the human. Now he's going to get even more sophisticated and say that in the human of the human, that means in the pre-intelligence, which is the human of the human, in that itself there is the stones of that human. That means there is the stones of the pre-intelligence. There are the emotions of the pre-intelligence. There are the intelligence of the pre-intelligence, and there is the pre-intelligence of the pre-intelligence. So that would mean that in our keter itself, keser is the chachmas tima, the concealed chachma, which is what's called the medaber in the person. In that itself, there is the doimeim of that, which would be the malchus of it. There is the midas of the keser, which is the tzomeach of the keser. So where is he going with this? One point. He wants to explain why, when we're talking about the pre-intelligence of God, we say that the way it communicates downward is through the strands of the God's beard. So he's explaining, what is he explaining? He's explaining to us the reason why he's saying that. What is it connected? Because, remember we were learning earlier that only the nether part of the Chachmas Timah becomes the source for the revealed Chachma. That's why it's such a big gap between them. Only the nether part, only the noivlois, only what drops from it. Oh. And that means, it means that only the midos of that level, only the tzomeach of that level, which is the midos of that level, that's the idea of the beard, is what goes down. Now, why is that such a great idea? It's great because when we look at the four creatures, at the four types of life, inanimate, plant, animal, and human, we find that each one is a separate level. But yet, animal and human are both much higher than the rest of them. We can understand. Inanimate, of course, is just inanimate. Even a plant that can grow, but it's basically inanimate in the sense that it stays in one place, it doesn't have desire, it doesn't have will, it doesn't have, right? You can't say the tree doesn't have desire, that we can at least a conscious desire, a will of its own, right? An animal has a certain similarity to humans. That's why people feel very, very much in company with animals. People have cats and dogs, and people make it their families. Now, the reason people do that is because they feel a certain common ground with them. It's like lower than the human, but there is still enough in the animal to put the animal on par with the human. But with a plant, people love plants, but you don't have that kind of relation because there's a great gap. So that's the point where he's making, is that the Tzomeach and the Domeim are considered much lower than the Chai and the Medaber. So, in Keser itself, in Chochmas Tima itself, the Medaber of Chochmas Tima, of the hidden Chochmah, and the Chai of Chochmas Tima, of the hidden Chochmah, are much higher than the Midos of Chochmas Tima and the Domeim of Chochmas Tima. But what does Chochmas Tima shine downward? How to the revealed Chochmah? What does it extend? Only the hair, which means only the Tzomeach of it. The Chai of it, which is the intelligence of that level, and the super intelligence of that level, are not revealing itself downward. Only the midos of the keser are going. That's why we use the example of beard, because the tzomeach of it, he's saying we shouldn't think, he's trying to undress us from the physicality. It's not that God has a beard. It means the emotions of this pre-intelligence. In general, the level is pre-intelligence. It's medaber. But within the medaber, there are all four. Only the nether part of it is what connects to the lower level, to the conscious chachma, not the higher part. That's what he's developing over here. And this is all to show us how minuscule and insignificant the Torah that is revealed to us is compared to the essence of the Torah as it is in its boundless infinite source. It's only coming from a hair. That's the idea. And in the medaber itself, all four levels are also included. Like the mashal of the soul that speaks, that includes all four. And they are gufa adam hamedaber, and that is the body of the person who speaks. Kol medalad b'chinos has all four. Ubchenes hamidos the chachma stima nikra tzomeach, and the midos of the chachma tzima is called the tzomeach of the chachma. Elachei nikra sairos, and that's why they're called here shem b'chenes tzomeach shebeguf. Just like in our body, the here is the tzomeach in the medaber. So the emotions that there are in Chachmas Tima, that's called the Tzomeach. That's called the here. That's in Chachmas Tima. Now, in this physical example, it is understood. Here's again a mistake. Here it says, "Shedoimim Tzomeach Chai Medaber Hem Kroivim Zeh Lezeh," are close one to the other. Umuvdalin be'erech mepchenas chai, and they're completely separated from the chai. But hold it. You just said that doimim tzomeach chai medaber are close to each other. How can you say a second later, muvdalim, it's separated mepchenas chai? You just listed chai. So again, you're forced to say that there's another typo over here. It's really frustrating how many there are. But this one was again easy to crack. What's supposed to be over here is moving on instead. Shedomim tzomeach. That's what we're supposed to say. That doimim and tzomeach are two, the inanimate and the plant, they're very close to each other. Hem kroivim zeh lezeh. In Tanya it also says that. In Tanya he explains how doimim and tzomeach are close to each other, and chai and medaber are a complete different category. Doimim tzomeach he calls is more the guf, or is mainly guf, mainly body, and Chayei Medaber are two levels of soul. The Alter Rebbe talks, when he speaks about two levels of machshava, of love, more natural love and intelligent love. These are the two levels of the Shama that you can put into your mitzvah. Over there in Perek Lametes, in Mem and Tanya, he says this idea. That's how we know. I mean, that's where this is all proves that what he's saying over here is that the doimim and the tzameach are close to each other. Umuvdalim be'erech mepchenas chai. There's a huge gap between them to the chai, to the animal, sheyesh by nefesh hachayunis, that has already a living, vivifying soul. V'kolshkem mepchenas medaber, definitely very far from the medaber. And just like in a person's body, the hair that's in a person, even physiologically, in our own body, the limbs of the body, the flesh, the bones, the limbs, the sinews, they're so much richer in terms of them being part of the human experience than the hair. Hair is external and on the outside. Because in the body itself, a deeper soul is there. The heart, the brain. Of course, if you compare a person's hair to the brain or to the heart, it's no comparison. But even to the limbs like the pinky, the hands, the fingers, the toes, that's part of the body itself. And the hair is just hair. Kach, and the same is also true. The emotions, v'noitzer chesed, the emotions of Keter, which are noitzer chesed, the Yud Gimel Midos Harachamim, which are called the Midos. That's why they're called the Midos of Keser. Legabe v'noitzer chesed, legabe chesed, to the chesed itself. Elechein nimshul l'sayros. And that's the reason it's compared to here. The tzomeach that's included in the medaber. She'ein aroch, that there's no comparison to that. Afilu legabe nefesh achiyunis shebemedaber. Even in comparison to the nefesh achiyunis of the medaber. Kolshkein legabe nefesh asichlis. Because in the medaber itself there is a external soul. Then there is an intelligent soul, and then there is a godly soul, and the hair is insignificant. And this idea of these insignificant hair, something as so insignificant and external of Keser becomes the source for Chachma Vatzilus. That's how diluted it is when it goes down into the revealed state of Chachma Datzilus. Because Chachma Datzilus is already a limited construct in compared to the Ein Sof of God. So we can understand how it needs to be reduced enormously for it to to enter into the range of Atzilus. Ve'im kain, and therefore, Ein Ze B'chenes Ishtalshelis Ilo V'yolo. That's why it's not called a evolution from cause to effect. Ragdilu ge'erech. Something coming through the hair is considered a major leap. Something coming through the emotions, which are called the tzomeach, the emotions of the Or Ein Sof, is called a completely disconnected from its source. I want to complete the thought. And that's why by the giving of the Torah it says, that when Hashem emerges out and gives us the Torah, He's shining forth, He's traveling through one of His hairs. He's condensing it through one hair of Him. Pirish Seir, Hainu Sar Yud. Seir means the hair. Number one, it means a hair, but even more, the hair of a Yud. What does it mean, a hair of a Yud? He's going to explain the Yud in a moment. Because the Torah, which is the Chachma of Atzilus, Nimsheches mebchenes Chachmas Tima, is being drawn from the concealed Chachma al Yedei Sairais Levad, only through the poor communication of a hair. V'nei Asaira, now why is it called Sar Yud? V'nei Asaira b'chenas Vav. A hair is in the shape. It's a long line. So it's a shape, it's a string. Here is a string. So it's the same shape like a Vav. What's a Vav? The letter Vav is a straight line, which is a string. V'zeu inyan, and this is the meaning when it says, Bivavin tiskatar. We say it in the Friday night Zemiros. We say Bivavin tiskatar, right? That's the tune. Bivavin tiskatar. Through the Vav, they become knotted. Now we understand why. Only through the hair do we link up to the Ein Sof. Bevavin tiskater, through the hair. Chavav, but this vav, yesh ba yud b'roishai. The vav, every vav, the top of a vav is a yud. V'hainu, what does that mean? The hair itself is the extension, the flow is the hair. The tube through where the energy flows. But the root from where it's the hair has to be plugged in somewhere into a little, it's called a guma, a little hole, where the hair is plugged in. V'hainu shoirish yenikas asayra. The yud is the root from where the hair comes from. Min hamoyach, from the brain. In other words, when you're looking to the plug, the hair gets plugged into an outlet. Every hair is plugged in. Imagine like an electric outlet. You plug a plug in. So the outlet is the yud. The plug itself is the vav. The outlet where it's plugged in is the yud. Oh, so the yud, we would think, is what? The vav is already a tremendous diminishment. But the yud is not diminished. The yud is the outlet itself. The outlet of the brain. No, but the reason we're saying it's a yud is because, again, we're emphasizing how minuscule it is. First of all, a yud is a tiny little letter. It's the smallest of all letters. It's just a tiny decimal point. But there's also another thing. A yud is 10. And he's going to emphasize over here something connected to the beginning of the parasha. That double digits is considered, there are single digits, there is double digits, triple digits in Torah, 4 digits and 5 digits. Higher than that doesn't exist in terms of numbers of Torah. The Torah only lists single, like we'll see in this week's parsha. Vayichai Sarah was the life of Sarah. It says Sheva Shanim, 7 years. That's singular, single digits. It also says Esrim Shana, 20 years, double digits. It also says triple. It says Meya Shana, 100 years. That's triple. So here it only lists 3 by Sarah, because she didn't live 1,000 years. But in the Torah, a lot of times 1,000 is mentioned, and also 10,000. Like in the verse that he brought earlier, Va'asa merivivais kodesh, ribo is 10,000. That's 5 digits. So the way it works is that 10,000 is very, very high levels of energy. 1,000 is a tremendous reduction from 10,000. 4. 3 is even a greater reduction. 2 is reducing it, and then 1 is the lowest reduction. So the spheres of Atzilus, I think, are single digits. The plug-in, the outlet, where the hairs of Keser are plugged in, that's double digits. That's 10. It's not capturing the triple digits. It's not capturing the 4, and it's definitely not capturing the 5. And you realize each of these levels are exponentially richer and more powerful than before. Like each time you're going up to a level, the leap and the gap is like way beyond anything else. So the concept that it's pulling only from a yud means it's pulling only from double digits. That's what he's trying to show, that not only the vav is a reduction, but the yud from where the vav comes from is a tremendous reduction. Is known. There is 10s, which is double digits. Me'os, triple digits, which is hundreds. Alafim, thousands. And Revav is 10,000s. The thousands and 10,000s are in Keser. In the level called Erech Anpin, that's where you have 1,000 and 10,000. The Gamla Palme Me'os, sometimes even hundreds, is associated with Keser. Keniske b'Makamacher is explained it elsewhere. Me'ah ve'esrim v'sheva shanim chai Sarah, the life of Sarah. It's referring to what was manifesting in Sarah's life. Which levels were? So it says that even 100, which is the level of Keter, she manifested in her life. Fine. But what is the hair capable of taking? What kind of voltage is the hair capable of taking? Only from a yud. Only he says esrim really, which is esrim shana by Sarah, which is 20. But if you're saying it's yud, it's only 10. But okay. Because that's the difference of Keser itself and the hairs of Keser that are going down. Over here it's reduced already enormously. But this is crazy. The entire world of, the entire revelation of Chachma Ilav Atzilus is only deriving from a hair, which that hair is plugged in to the outlet, which is a yud, which is only double digits. And beyond that, that means Keser is so much higher, because that's where you have hundreds and thousands and 10,000s. That's the idea that we said earlier. Only a tiny dripping of the supernal Chachma is Torah. Pidish, Chachma Shalmaila. The sages say the higher Chachma. They don't mean Chachma Vatzilus. Haina Chachma Stima de Erech Anpin. It's the hidden Chachma of Keser of Erech Anpin. Shenikra Chakim Veloy B'Chachma Yediyah. This is already beyond a knowledgeable Chachma Kiyadua. V'Iraisa and the Torah. She Chachma Yelod Atzilus, which is the higher Chachma Vatzilus. Nimsheches Me Chachma Stima comes from the Chachma Stima. Rak Me B'chinas Noivlois. Only from the drippings. Sheba. Dahainu B'chinas Mazel V'Noitzer Chesed. It's only from these two Mazolos. V'Noitzer Chesed and V'Nake, it says. Because Noitz, it's interesting. You know that the word V'Noitzer, which is one of the 13 attributes, if you rearrange the letter V'Noitzer, you have the word Tzinor. Tzinor means a pipe. The word V'Nake, if you rearrange the letters, you get the word Kaneh. Kaneh means a tube. So these two, Noitzer and V'Nake, are both tubes in which the narrow Tzimtzum Diga light goes down to form the entire wisdom of the cosmos, of the Torah even. We're not even talking about the wisdom of creation, which is far, far inferior. Shubchen Cyrus Levad is only a hair. Hashem shined forth from Seir Kiniskiyah. Once Hashem condenses his utterly unknowable wisdom into a level of knowable wisdom, into Torah, it's still beyond our grasp. It has to be reduced the second time, and that's the second reduction from Torah Shebiksav, from the oral Torah, from the written Torah to the oral Torah. And that's the meaning of V'asa me rivavos kodesh. Now it comes forth. Miyaminoi eish das. It goes through a powerful eish, a powerful eish fire. It goes through an enormous tzimtzum. Fire is tzimtzum gavura. V'liyoisam shacha. In order for there to be amshacha me'torah shebeksav le'torah shebal-peh, from the written Torah to the oral Torah, shezeu al-yedei dekavish be'isha. He has to put it through a fire. It has to. The Indian yuva, what does it mean? I just want to share, because what's so beautiful over here, where is he taking this? He's going to show it in the parsha, how Rebecca, is the one who's doing all of this. When she goes down to the well and she draws the jug of water, she is going into Keser, the ayin, the spring that she's going into. Little Rivka, 3-year-old Rivka, she's going up into the infinite lights of Keser with her pail. She's pulling from there the word kad. Kad is chav daled, which means a pail, but it also means 24. She fills the one bucketful of water from that infinite ocean of divine wisdom, and that bucket is what is contained in the letters of the Torah. That's the 24 books of the Torah. But that's Rivka. Then the servant, who's Eliezer, he's way, 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 way lower than her in terms of his spiritual level, but he is still the master of the three lower worlds. That's why he's called Zakan Beso. He's the elder of Abraham's house. HaMoshel, he rules B'chol HaShaloi. He rules everything. Eliezer, he's the distributor to all of creation. He is the chief distributor of energy to every single world that's part of the creation. But he's at the bottom of the world of Atzilus. Rivka is at the top of the world of Atzilus. We're reaching into Keser, filling a bucket, and then he's begging her, pour me a little. When he is begging her to pour her a little, that's the Torah Shebal Peh asking the Torah Shebiksav, the oral Torah, asking the written Torah, a little bit of light, pour me in to the 60 tractates of Shas, to the Shulchan Aruch, to the entire flood of Torah Shebal Peh, fill me, drink me with a little water. And in order for her to do that, it says, she lowers the bucket off her shoulder. Because while it's on her shoulder, he can't reach it. She has to lower it down on her hands. She has to lower it down into the emotions, as the hands are the emotions, similar like we learned earlier, that it has to go through the strands, which are the emotions. By Rivka as well, it has to go down from her intellect into the emotions, and then she can have Rachmanis on him and give him a little bit of water for him, and then that water becomes what waters the Torah for all of us, where all the knowledge that we get, which is from the oral Torah. So this entire process is being drawn out in this Rebecca story as she's drawing the Torah from its quintessential source. This is where it's going. I want to keep your interest before you get lost in all this Kabbalah, so you know that the story is going to become very rich. We're almost getting there. What does it mean that in order to bring the Torah Shebal Peh out from the Torah Shebiksav, the oral Torah from the written Torah, it has to go through fire. So he gives an interesting thing. He says, before we spoke about four types of life that there is in the world, the inanimate, right? But now we're going to speak about the four elements. Four elements is fire, wind, water, and earth. Those are the four elements. Now, because everything in the world this is a world of integration. Everything is integrated. So it says that there's no such a thing as a pure element. Even water has within it all the other elements. So there is the wind in the water. There is what would be the fire in the water would be interesting. But there is also the element of earth in the water. So when you look at water, you don't see any earth. No sediments, pure earth. But we all know that at the bottom of your tea kettle or in the bottom of your hot water urn is collected a lot of pieces. That's because when you cook water, certain impurities that are in the water, they're very subtle. In the water, you don't see them, but the fire has the ability to break things up. That's what heat does. Heat is able to expand and open things up. So the hidden, small, tiniest little things that are not noticed in the water become separated and become pronounced through the fire. Torah Shebiksav, the written Torah, is called water. Like we said, Rebecca fills up a jug of water. Because Chachmah is called water. Which Chachmah? The revealed Chachmah is called water. The hidden Chachmah, Chachmah Stima, that we spoke about earlier, is not called water. It's called oir, it's called light. But Chachmah Giluya, the revealed Chachmah, is called water. Now there is no way we can assimilate that divine water into our beings. What we can get from the water is the hidden earth that's in the water. And that's what Torah Shabbat Peh is. Torah Shabbat Peh is the pieces of earth that's in the water. That's what, in other words, the chunkiness of the water, the substance, the lowest element of it, that's what can come down into full application, full understanding, full grasp to the finite creatures of this world. Chachma is Mayim, Malchus is earth. But you have to draw the earth out of the water and draw it down. But for that you need fire. The fire, that's why it says Kavash Be'isha, he puts it through a powerful tzimtzum, a heating up, that finds the pieces, the earthiness of the water, separates the element of earth that's in the water, and it's similar to the concept of the hair coming down, but here it's probably a lesser descent than the previous descent, but still an enormous descent. If to know that when you have a cup of water, you're not even drinking the water, all you're getting is the bottom pieces that went to the bottom. But if it's the waters of life, it's the waters of divinity, we'll take the little pieces that get down. That's the Torah Shabbat Peh. Ve'inyan yoven al derech mashal mashan arayim we see b'mahus haseichel sheba'adam. He says, so first he's going to explain it more. Soon he's going to explain it more physically. Now he's going to explain it more psychologically. He says that when a person has a flash of insight, when a person has seichel, when you have an epiphany, when something suddenly illuminates your mind, you don't feel words, you don't feel letters there. There's no oisias, there's no words. All you have in your head is just ideas. You don't feel words. But later, when the Chachma goes into the Bina, which is the power of Gevura, which is the fire part, then you suddenly start seeing the words that are part of the idea. The initial flash of a person on the right side of the mind, the right side of the brain, where innovation happens, where new ideas come, when you have an idea, all you sense is brilliant light. You find a concept. You're not hearing yourself talking. You don't hear words. But when you put it into the analytical side of your mind, which is the left side, and you start analyzing it with your power of Bina, that's when you start feeling words. The oisios, that's like the earth that's in the water. Remember we said that letters are called earth, inanimate? The inanimate part of the idea has to be separated for it to be felt. The Bina separates, because that's what Bina does. It separates. In Chachma, the letters are swimming. There is letters there, but the letters are submerged with the idea. You don't notice them. Just like the earth is part of the water, and you don't notice it. It's a process to separate it. When a person has a new svara, that occurs in his mind, you don't feel the letters there. But as soon as you put it into your left mind, you're going to start finding letters there. That's when you can feel that you're speaking words, that the concept is wordy. And you can ask the question, where did suddenly these letters pop up in this idea? The idea is, first the oisias were really there in the seichel, in the idea. They weren't noticed to be an entity on their own. But then in the moach of Bina, that's when they start pronouncing themselves. You can sense these letters. And the example for this, what we said earlier, that the water itself includes all four elements in it. There's literally afar, earth, kolol ba'amayim, included in the water. But you don't feel it and you don't see it. You drink the water, it feels completely smooth. As if it's only water. Aval de bishul, but when you cook it, sheyavashlu amayim be'esh, when the water gets cooked in fire, yispardu chelkei ha'afar, the parts of the earth that's in it, v'yonekadim v'nirgashim, and becomes substantial and noticeable to the point that you can detect it and see it. So we said earlier that the letters is the inanimate. That's the concept of osios, of letters, haklulim ba'aseichel, that are there in the intellect. Hanikramayim, the intelligence itself is called water. The letters are the afar. That's the earth that's inside. But through this, that you put it through the fire, which is the bina, who b'chinas habina, he just says beis, but it's bina. Naso mitzias ha'oisiyos. That's when it formulates letters, begiloi mamish, literally in a revealed way. Rak, here he says at the bottom, that rak seichel gamkein, that it's missing, chaser kan eza tevis, it seems to be missing a word. When I was reading it, I thought I'd figure it out. Rak, rak shetzarech gamkein. Seems like the word that seems to be missing over here is tzarech, but I don't know how to put in the word rak sheseichel or shekol. I'm not sure. What he's saying is that the fire itself. If you apply too much fire over there, there's too much gevura there, it becomes too wordy, and you lose the richness of it. You lose the energy of it. So you have fire, but you also have to cool what's called sweetening of the judgments. You bring the gevura in, but you have to loosen the gevura. There shouldn't be too much of a tzimtzum. That's what the wind does. So you add the wind over there that weakens the fire, and then so now he explains is like this, because the letters of Torah shebiksav nimshach b'Torah shebal peh. Torah shebiksav is water. It's a divine wisdom. The lowest part of it. Now, when the Eibishter gives Torah shebiksav, remember we said that in Torah shebiksav there is 4 letters. There is the song, then there is the pronunciations, the vowels, the the commentary. Then there is the crowns on the letters, and then there is the letters. So to us, we're such silly people. So to us, from our human perspective, what's the main thing of a Sefer Torah? It's letters. And then once you have a letter, okay, you add a little crown to it, and then you add, and then there's also pronunciations, but that you're not allowed to even put it in the Torah. Torah does not have a kamatz patach in it inside of a Sefer Torah, okay? And then the song is not so important, but that's also part of it. But really it works the complete opposite. When the Torah emanated from the pre-Torah state, when Chachma Geluya was released, when we spoke earlier, through the hair or whatever, and it was released as a revealed Chachma, there's no words there. Like we said earlier, remember when I say there's no words. You know what it is? It's a song. It's the Eibishter song. It's a niggin, that's what it is. It's full of pleasure, full of delight. It's the most beautiful song. That's the tamim. That's the pleasure of it. Then it gets more condensed, and you feel, and you start getting like nekudas. Sounds like ooh, ah, ee, that's a little giving already more definition. Then, and those 2 parts you can't even see because they're so lofty that in a Sefer Torah you can't even write that. From there it lowers down into crowns, and from the crowns come the letters. So the letters are the most nether part of it. The letters are like the earth that's in the water. And from those letters of the Torah, that's the part, the letters and only the letters, is what Torah Shebaal Peh analyzes. Torah Shebaal Peh doesn't analyze the song part. You don't have a Mishnah describing the ta'amim of the pasuk or darshaning the ksarim. The Mishnah doesn't talk about it. Torah Shebaal Peh is not able to decipher the higher and deeper parts of the Torah Shebiksav. It's only able to nibble on the letters, to decode the letters. The vav of the word ki yishal is an extra word. When a person will borrow, when there is a vav, we learn out an entire perek. Ish vav moisav alin yerishin masha enkein. So only the letters is what we're tamim nekudos tagin loy bo begilu b'Torah Shebaal Peh. Does not reveal itself at all in the oral law. V'zeu shenemar v'asa, that in order, the osios, he comes down and he translates lower, miyaminoi eish das. You need a fire over there to separate what could descend further from the revealed Torah, from the revealed Chachmah, down into the Malchut level, which is speech, which is letters. Even just making the letters of Torah Shebiksav. See, in Torah Shebiksav, initially when it's downloaded, there's no letters there. It's just a song. It's just water. Al Yedei Dekavish Be'isha. Then you put it through the fire and the tzimtzum. Umezen Nimshach. That produces the letters of Torah Shebiksav, which then later, those letters produce down further HaTorah Shebaal Peh, the oral Torah. Yuvan, and this will understand, Masha Kasu Vikada, and her jug, al Shichmah, is on her shoulder. Kada al Yada, she's lowering it. Pirish, Kada, what's the Kad? Haina Chav Dalet Svarim. These are the 24 books of the Torah, the Iraisa. Because all that it is only one little jug of water. Because the drippings of the higher wisdom is Torah. Is only the hair. That's why it also says that when Rebecca was holding the jug of water, where was she holding it? On her shoulder. The shoulder is to the back of the person. That means the entire drawing forth of Torah is from behind of the Ein Sof. From the back. Shubchenes acharayim, the backside. V'noivlois chachma shalmayla. And the back of it. Nimshchu chav daled. That's where the kad, this jug, is drawn from. Ukemoshel bittel kad echad. And if we were to give it an example of how insignificant it is, one jug, legabe hayam, and compared to the ocean, oy hamayon, or the spring. The spring has so much potential of water. You draw out one, you didn't weaken the spring, definitely didn't weaken the sea by drawing one cut. And that's why it says by Moshe Rabbeinu olav hashalom, upanai lo yero. Moshe was the one who brings us the Torah. It says my face you can't see, you can only see my back. But that's not enough. In order for it to be drawn down further, to the oral Torah, that's only a little ray of the written Torah. Because Torah Shebaal Peh is only explaining the mitzvahs itself, the content Torah Shebiksav. Aval, Tamim nekudos tagin and oisiyos, but the song, the nekudot, the tagim, the crowns, and even the letters itself, shebetorah shebeksav, shekol echad ve'echad merames al riboy revavis almin. Every single one of these levels are indicating on trillions of worlds. Eina balidei giloi is not being revealed at all. Rak Rabbi Akiva was dabbling in this. Hayadirish al kol koitz v'koitz. On the crowns, he reached a little bit beyond the letters into the crowns. To tilim, he learned out many halachos from them, whatever that means. Shehu levadei hayadei azois. Only Rabbi Akiva knew this. Ulazois nikra shmai Akiva. That's why his name is Akiva. Ekev Yud Kei. He was able to draw down the Yud and the Hey, the higher parts of the Torah. Yud and the Hey is Chachma and Bina, all the way down Ekev into the physical world, into a physical human mind. But other than Akiva, who can bring the Yud Kei down in an Ekev, no one can tap that. Even the sublime Yud Kei of God's wisdom, b'chinas Ekev to the heel. The Arizal, Rabbi Akiva, there's a certain club that are able to pass that Kedeli El Ois Aleph. That we study, the revealed Torah, it's not revealing at all. Hatamim Nekudos Tagin Oisiyos. Shebetayr Shebeksav, that's in the Torah Shebeksav. Umashin is bar the Bchinas Oisis Torah Shebeksav, who binyan Torah Shebapeh. Didn't we say before that the letters of the Torah are that which build the Torah Shebapeh, the oral Torah? And now we're saying that even the letter is not. He says you have to differentiate. When we say the letters, we mean the content of the letters is what goes. We try to understand the content of the letter. But the shape of the letter itself, the meaning of the shapes, we have no idea what that means. If there's an extra letter, we notice these extra letter or something like that. We notice a little bit the language of the Torah, but we don't decodify the letters itself. Torah Shabbat Peh, the oral Torah, has no access to understand that. Vav Moisef, Tam Tmunas Oisis, but the reason why the letters are the way they are, Lama Vav Betmunas Zuva, Mamaramas, Lod Boile de Giloi, is not revealing itself, Torah Shabbat Peh, in the oral Torah. Raka Pirush Levad, Sheine Ela Arbalma, only the explanation and all is only alone, which is only a ray of Torah Shabbat from the written Torah. And this is the idea of Ayoimera Eved, and that's who the Eved is. That's what Eliezer is. Eliezer is begging Rivka. She just brought the Torah into existence, the Torah Shabbat, and he's asking her, lower it down, explain it to us a little bit closer to our created language. Put it into the oral law. Give me a little water. He's not asking for the whole jug. He knows he can't get the whole one. He's saying, give me a little water from your kad. A little bit from your kad. She'eved hoye b'chinas malchus. The eved is the level of malchus. Here it says Torah Shabbat, it's supposed to be Torah Shabbat Peh. B'chinas Torah Shabbat Peh, which is the oral Torah. And therefore he's called Avdo, the servant. Zekan Beisai. Shohaya b'chinas Chachmi Allah Torah Shabbat. He is the servant of who? Of Chachmilah, of Avram, Torah Shabbat, HaMoshel B'chol HaShaloi, and he's ruling on everything that belongs to Abraham. It means he's ruling over the lower worlds. Haina Kol Ishtal Shalos Tebiyah, the three lower worlds of Bria, Tzir, and Asiyah, Shenimshach Mepchenas HaEved. It's all controlled by the servant. K'moshe Kasav Malchuscha Malchus Kol Elamim, that the kingship of God rules all the worlds. V'zeu hagmeini ma'at mayim, abissal avaser, a little water, mekadech. Shagiloi shebetorah shebapeh hanimshach ba mimayim, the revelation in the oral Torah from the water, the kad, from that jug, hurat ma'at mayim, is a little bit of water, mekadzeh. Shadaka oda ba'alma, only a ray of it, nimshach begiloi betorah shebapeh, is revealed in a revealed way in the Torah Shabbat, v'loy kol hamayim shebekad, and not all the water that's in the kad shebetorah shebeksav, that's in the written Torah. Daha, why? Tamim nekudos tagen en oisiyos loy ba begiloi, because the four levels of Torah are not revealed at all in the Torah Shabbat. V'zeu, and this is the meaning of vatemar. When he asked her, it says she rushes vatoyred kada. She lowers the jug down, because even this idea of giving him a little bit, she can only do that after she lowers the Torah down to a much lower level, and then she can pour him in. She couldn't pour him a little bit from the jug while it's on her shoulder. She has to lower it down. Al yada, on her hand. The kad has to be downgraded. Al yada, on her hand. The wisdom has to go down into the emotions, shenikra yadayim, that are called the hands, and then it can enter into the range of Eliezer, who is the element of Malchus, which is the Torah Shabal Peh, shemakabelas mebchinas yadayim dafka. That's receiving not from the brain, it's receiving from the hands, from the midos. Like we find by benching, you're supposed to take the koshel bracha and put it on the hand like this, or by kiddush. And the reason is because the kois is malchus, and it's receiving from the fingers, the hands. The yasva, it sits al heyatzban on 5 fingers, yad yamin of the right hand, and iske bezoyer betchilas hasefer ayin sham. Till here is where we're going to learn this week. And Be'ezus Hashem, next week, we're going to continue further about this marriage of Torah Shabaksav and Torah Shabal Peh. And they're called Chasen and Kala. And then we're going to learn about Simchas Torah and Shmini Atzeres and Gewalt. All right. Thank you for joining.